on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. How do you behave when you're jealous is something that kind of kept popping into my head because I was thinking about it. I was thinking about how can everything just be so focused anti-Republican, so focused anti-Trump, right? And it made me think about it. Like, if you've ever been jealous, like you were in school, maybe you're jealous of the quarterback, right? Maybe he was getting all the girls. Maybe you were talking to one of his girls. One of the girls are friends. Maybe they were enamored by him and you were interested in them. Maybe you were just the friend. Who knows, right? The F word, the dreaded F word. But you'd talk to her and you'd be like, hey, yeah. And so she'd bring up the quarterback and you'd like, yeah, but he kind of smells, you know, and he's not very smart, gets bad grades and blah, blah, blah. And like, no matter what you said, the girl still wanted him. She's like, well, he smells bad. I don't know. I think he smells musky, right? Like you couldn't win. I don't like smart guys anyway, right? Like whatever your thing was, she was backpedaling from it. And it seems like that's where we are right now. Seems like Trump and the Republicans, just no matter what, they're bad. No matter what. Can't trust Trump's doctor, no matter what you do. You can't trust them, right? Because they're obviously lying to us. The Supreme Court thing, obviously we shouldn't move forward with that because we can't trust Trump and because of COVID and because, I don't know, whatever other reason I can come up with. We shouldn't do that right now either. And those really seem to be the big things on the focus of the news today. Now, of course, the one thing that comes into play, the pandemic, and what really seems to be happening around the pandemic. It seems to be a control grab. I mean, I don't know. If you look at it, yeah, there's a sickness. All right, let's just put that aside for a second. There's obviously this very, very contagious sickness that's going around. You know, I don't know how serious it is because 95% of the people, even when 95% of 70-year-olds that get it will survive most likely. That's what the statistics show. And then if you're under 70, well, you've got over a 99% chance of survival. So it's like a bad sickness that's super contagious, but once you get the sickness, you'll be fine. But whatever the case is, it's got to be played out like it's way bigger than that. It's got to be played out like this thing's gonna kill you. It's the worst thing ever. It just the mere mention of it will cause you to get it. And by chance, if you're Republican, well, shoot, you're 97% more likely to get the virus than you are if you're, independent or Democrat. So, of course, my advice to everybody would be to instantly, change. If you're Republican, just re-register to independent. You can keep voting Republican all day long, just, and independent. And then you're COVID-free. You'll never, ever get it. So it's meant to control the situation, although people really hate it. They absolutely hate it. And they're starting to fight back. They're starting to get a little restless. And what we're also noticing, by the way, is the leadership is actually starting to turn on each other. And that is one of the things that a lot of us suspected would start to happen. So we've got a big little bit of a faction, I should say, within the left that's beginning to turn on each other. And this is kind of what I think a lot of us have been waiting for. Seriously, at least me. I've been waiting for this. This is the faction that I've been waiting to finally wake up and go, what is going on with my party? What is going on with the people that I'm surrounding myself with? You've got the progressives who are ultra super crazy left, and then literally a majority of the Democrat Party, pretty center left, and maybe leaning a little heavier left just because their party went just running down the road. And they're like, hey, wait for me. And they're like, I don't know if I want to go all the way down there. It looks scary. And that's kind of what's going on. So everything's being played out that everything's bad, everything Trump, everything that you could possibly ever attribute to the Republican Party, to anybody that supports the Republican Party, any of these crazy patriot posts that we've been talking about lately, anything on that side, it's obviously bad. Just bad. Just whatever you're doing, just beep, beep, beep. Just put it in reverse, back up, back away from this Republican Party. Nothing to see here. Don't want to support these people that believe in the Constitution and we the people actually in charge. No, don't listen to them. They're silly. And we don't like them. And people are waking up. And it's very, very interesting how things are playing out. Now, there's a lot of talk where they tell people, hey, look, here's, Trump did the bad thing. Everybody should have been tested and wasn't. It's all Trump's fault. And as it plays out, nobody was tested there. I mean, the people that were working on the event themselves, apparently they were tested. And it seems like 11 people from that area came down with COVID that were working on setting up this event. Supposedly, nobody was allowed to work on the event unless they got tested, and then they were supposed to quarantine until after the test results came back. All right. But Biden and the President Trump, none of those people, they were just on the honor system, both sides. So anybody that was there to support Biden would therefore be on the honor system to test themselves as well. Now, I find it exceptionally weird that all the people that seem to have gotten sick, and Kayleigh McEnany just came out today and admitted that she tested positive now. She's going to work remotely, and she's really young. Again, 99-point-something% chance of being fine. And after she goes through this and probably takes a bunch of drugs or whatever they're using to help with this, she'll be on her way, and she's supposedly going to work remotely. So there you go. It's one more person. But we got Trump, First Lady, Senior White House Advisor Hope Hicks, Bill Stepien, Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel. We got Mike Lee from Utah, Tom Tillis from North Carolina. Got, Ron Johnson, Kellyanne Conway got it, Chris Christie, which Kellyanne Conway, man, she had to finally leave because her husband and the family, like her daughter and her husband pretty much hated her because she was supporting Trump. So she had to leave the campaign, which I thought was effective end of August. I don't remember when that was supposed to be, but obviously she wanted to be a part of this. And so things are coming into question. So if a member of, at Real Donald Trump, this is Langdale, California, if a member of the Real Donald Trump administration was purposely infected by a state-sponsored agent, then this infection could be considered an act of war. And that's the thing that's really interesting. Everybody that got infected, coincidentally, only Republicans. A bunch of people were wearing masks in there. There was open air. It was all the things that you were supposed to be able to do. And of course, I know anybody on the left's like, well, yeah, duh. But I think anybody that's rational thinking, anybody that kind of just goes, does that make a lot of sense? I get the right is a lot more, hey, don't wear masks, open up, no big deal. And the left's very much, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. If you don't try to keep this blocked, you should wrap yourself in cellophane. They're like, no, you should never, ever touch the air ever again. That's not going to work. And they want to shut down the economy forever. I mean, that's what you can look forward to getting if they continue down those paths. But this Deximeth tweet power activated, whatever that is, I think it's pretty important that Cleveland put out a statement saying that the 11 people who had COVID were members of media and planners or logistics people, i.e. people who were there before Trump ever arrived. So some of the people. The Cleveland Clinic later, Friday, clarified that the 11 people who tested positive never accessed the debate hall. These individuals were either members of the media or were scheduled to work logistics setup in the days prior to the event. Individuals did not receive credentials or tickets to enter the debate hall until they had a negative test, and all were advised to isolate while they awaited their test results. Probably not a good endorsement for the health education campus of Case Western Reserve University and Cleveland Clinic, which hosted the candidates to discuss their respective plans to protect and advance the nation's health. Neither campaign tested on-site the day of the debate. They were there Tuesday afternoon. Seems pretty easy to figure out that if any of the 11 in the media logistics planning mingled with the campaign people, then we would have had a whole lot of issues going on. And they kind of reference this particular story here. It's all about the honor system and being able to make sure that, everyone was testing and telling everybody they tested, because as they were saying from Fox News, we couldn't possibly make sure that everybody tests. And Chris Wallace has been a bit of a jerkhole for sure this week in regards to it. I don't know if he's getting a lot of flack. I hope he is, because he is a jerkhole. But he really is doubling down on this. And I honestly think this will be probably pushing towards the end of his experience in news broadcast. It wouldn't surprise me if he might be retiring sometime shortly after this coming election. Now, again, everybody's talking about Trump's condition improving overnight. So Chief of Staff Meadows says, right? But obviously we can't trust him because he's one of Trump's people. But what's interesting is, from him and the media, the videos that Trump has put out about him talking and showing himself, like Biden being healthy can't talk for like 2 minutes without screwing stuff up. I mean, Trump even quote unquote with COVID is still pretty good, still pretty jovial, pretty happy, nothing too terribly distant or difficult there. So, again, we've got a lot of options to assess whether or not Trump is lying or not. But certainly everybody on the left, his doctors are lying, Trump is lying, Trump doesn't really even have it, none of these people really have it, right? Like just insane stuff that's being said. And again, pot kettle, man, I entertain all sorts of crazy conspiracy beliefs and theories and whatnot. But this one, I don't know, I'm gonna throw my hand up and say, hey guys, come on, it's a little crazy, don't you think? But people, investors, people with money, apparently saw the fact that Trump seems better. They're saying, I love this, by the way, when the economy does better for a day, they're like, oh, it's because Trump passed gas. You know, it's like, how do they know this is the thing that caused it? Whatever. But apparently because Trump is feeling better, the economy seemed to have tapered out. So we had a pretty bad free fall when the news came out that Trump might have the virus. And that, you know, it's a death sentence at first, right? It's like saying you're going to get AIDS back in the 80s. Apparently not so much. But, again, the investors first thought Trump was going to die. Oh, no, sell off, right? And then they're like, oh, Trump's going to be okay? Okay, cool. That means there's hope for the future. Shows you where the money believes who's winning this election. I kind of want to point that out. They can say whatever they want to say. By the way, the news and the mainstream media and all that stuff, that's meant for us. That's meant for us people, us stupid people. People with money and actually know what the hell they're doing, they don't watch mainstream media. They're reading other stuff and different periodicals and the Wall Street Journal and whatever the hell, right? They're reading their things. And they're making their tough decisions. Well, they support Trump as a president because they know the economy is going to better from it. They know that people are going to better from it. So the economy spoke up that Trump is apparently doing better. All right, well, there's something that's kind of interesting to point out. Now, a lot of people... And I don't want to make a big deal of this. A lot of people have talked about these like 14 tweets or whatever, people that have just slammed Trump. You know, one that was the speechwriter or whatever for Hillary. And she's like, I wish he'd die. So again, a lot of horrible things have been said. I think it's just good to point out doesn't look good on them. Now, I understand there's this crazy, wacko, way super progressive left that probably supports this, that probably wishes Trump would die. That's truly probably, they wake up in the morning and probably say, I wish Trump would die. Like, that's probably what they say. But the other, like 95% of us don't. And so what's funny about the twit of us is most people kind of have a feeling that this is what's going on in everybody's minds. Now, what happens is there's little algorithms that look at the way people are reacting to things, and if it's creating an emotional response, Twitter just starts to feed it up the food chain because it gets people watching Twitter, gets people hop, oh, what so-and-so say? Oh my God, I got to respond. That's all Twitter wants. They want freaky stuff, so you'll respond. Doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean this is what everyone thinks. Just means you just fed this to millions of people and hundreds of thousands of them or 100,000 of them. So clicked at it and said, oh. So now all of a sudden everybody's talking about it. That's not really true. So kind of keep that in mind when everybody's saying all these horrible things. It's not. This is a really small percentage of the population. That is why they are having to work so freaking hard right now to shut down Trump. I mean, again, we've got people everywhere. Trump packs stadiums or packs large venues. People will drive down to just the airport to sit there and stare at Trump's plane from 100 feet away. Biden doesn't do that. Trump does. Majorly. There's a huge difference between these two candidates. The people know. It's not really even silent majority. It is in the sense that the mainstream media is not talking about it. It's not silent in the sense if you go anywhere where these things are happening or where the American flags are hanging or where the Trump flags are hanging, and yes, there are some Biden flags out there. I'm not saying nobody's supporting Biden. I'm just saying there's not nearly as many people supporting Biden as you would think. They make it sound like it's really crazy. Now, talking about themselves, eating themselves, we've got a couple fun little places. And I honestly don't know which way to go on this. Like in Arizona, for example, the GOP says Democratic Senator nominee can't be trusted after this uncover video is released. We got a really cool undercover video from Project Veritas once again. And this is the Mark Kelly, used to be an astronaut, so it makes me want to like the guy. But apparently, being even a Republican as he is. Oh, no, he's a Democrat? No, this is Rep. Gabby D-Crap, whatever. He's apparently kind of holding back his views about the Second Amendment and his desire, which people are aware of. He's just been downplaying it. This isn't like a secret. but people are very aware of his ability to desire to take away people's guns and to truly take away the Second Amendment. He's being chill about that right now because he doesn't want to lose the independent votes. But people are finding out about it, it seems. We've got a cool little thing here from Project Veritas. Let's check it out.
I know we always can't trust politicians. I'm like defaming my campaigner.
No. I'm James O'Keefe on location in Arizona, and Angelica Carpeo is a field organizer for Mission for Arizona, basically Arizona's Democratic Party, and an extension of the Mark Kelly campaign. Mark Kelly can't get elected if he's honest with the voters, and Angelica tells us to what lengths Kelly will go in order to win the election.
Arizona is a very Republican state in general, like a red state, and I know, actually right now it's purple, technically, but I just think he wants to get those independents, he wants to get those Republicans that don't trust Trump anymore, but one of their main issues is guns, so I don't think he's fully, like, been out there saying, like, I want, like, a full gun, like, control type measure, and I think it's because he just wants to get elected first, and then he wants to go further.
He wants to go further. We've heard it before. This time it's Democrat Mark Kelly running for Senate in Arizona.
Even the staffers are like kind of confused, like we want him to come full force out, but it's just like, the problem is this is such a consequential state coming up soon, and like I think he's trying to be elected and then he'll implement the measures. You always can't trust politicians. I mean, like everybody on the staff can say this, like every politician, I'm like defaming my campaigner.
No.
And it's really important to point out that this is one of the things that the deep state loves to do. They love to take heroes of ours and put a bunch of patches on their sleeves and then stand them up in front of us and basically use them to push their agenda. And that's what they're trying to do. And this is really what it's all about, folks. Get them in office and then do the crazy stuff. Like what we're seeing, well, let's give a couple examples. Kind of like what we're seeing down here in Texas. Texas, there's some more people churning on each other. So we've got what's going on over here in Arizona, and that's interesting, sure. Over in Texas, we've got this Attorney General, Ken Paxton, is apparently being accused of abusing his powers. And he's being accused by someone that's quote-unquote a Republican, as well as some others. Now, again, I'm not sure what side of the argument that is the right side of the argument. What I think is most important to point out is these deep state folks, and there are deep state people on the right. For those of you on the right, for you hardcore Republicans, understand you're not free from sin either, okay? Now, I think we're in a lot better place on the right than we are on the left, but, so let's keep that in mind. But I think we've got some of this is starting to bubble to the surface here as well. In Texas, in a state right now that they're going after in a major heavy way, in a state right now that has a lot of Californians leaving California and going to places like Texas and really helping turn it purple. Austin certainly being a great example of that. I mean, I've spent some time in Austin and I love people from there and whatnot, but yeah, there's some craziness that goes on there down there, South Congress, that whole area. Anyway, so kind of crazy out there. San Antonio, a little different experience, but they're trying to make changes in that. So again, we'll see how this all plays out. A lot of slinging of mud right before the election. Nothing surprising there. And what's also interesting is New York, another interesting place. We've got de Blasio and the mayor, Cuomo, basically going toe-to-toe to a degree. De Blasio's like, yeah, I'm going to lock down 9 of my hot spots. I guess he's doing it by zip code, which Cuomo kind of wants to dial that in a little smaller, make it more of like a street thing, like, hey, these blocks to this block. But, de Blasio's like, nah, whatever. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And some people were asking de Blasio, hey, don't you think you should talk to Cuomo first before you do this? And he's like, no, I'm just going to do it, and then we'll see what happens. So New York City mayor is going to clash with Cuomo. He insists all non-essential businesses will close Wednesday. Will close Wednesday. Everything. Period. End of story. Don't care what you want. So he's got these plans to move forward and close all these non-essential businesses. So any business that thought they had a chance in these few areas are toast now. Now, again, I guess the way it played out, I don't know which article. Yeah, here it is, I think. No, I don't remember which article it was, but it was showing that the neighborhoods that had the higher positivity rate were averaging upwards of 5%. Maybe this is it, current 14-day positivity rate. So I guess this is it. So I think anything over 5%, he's considering additional locking down. And again, it's one of those things where I kind of wonder, like, how many of us maybe got COVID and don't know it because we never got sick, and maybe just it entered us, it went through us, we somehow got past it, life's moved on, and we don't realize we had it. And how many of us may have residual bits of that virus floating around in our bodies? Maybe that's what our body uses to make antivirus and all that. I don't know. I don't understand. I'm not a virologist, but I do understand that when you get the flu, you don't get the same strain again because your body creates an immune response to it. So I get there's that component. And I'm not really aware of any disease that you can get multiple times that just gets worse and worse and worse every time you get it. Like, I don't know, like certain things maybe flare up from time to time. But like if you get a disease and then you end up getting it again, oftentimes it's not nearly as severe the second time or third time if possible. So this whole idea that you can get it, but it doesn't matter, you're going to get it again and again and again and again and again. That's that fear stuff. I don't know of any other examples of stuff that acts like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to claim I'm a doctor here. I'm just trying to think of any other thing. I mean, chickenpox, yeah, you might get shingles, but that's kind of a different thing, right? And I guess you're susceptible to it once you get chickenpox, but supposedly you can't get chickenpox again. Chickenpox is super duper contagious, right? And you get it, and it sucks, and you move through it, and life's on, right? Like, you'd rather get it young than old. Kind of the same thing with this thing. Who knows? It's very interesting that they're going to take this high testing rate, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're sick, doesn't necessarily mean you're contagious, doesn't necessarily mean anything, but certainly implies a great deal. And so they're going to shut down more of New York. This is what people are sick of. This is what's starting to really piss people off. And this is what de Blasio continues to do. This is what people like Mussolini here in California continues to do. Or our mayor of Eric Garcetti. I got a story right here. Eric Garcetti's flip-flopping right now. Now, this isn't the same thing as shutting stuff down, which he's famous for doing as well. But now he's apparently switching his endorsement to some other guy that apparently is Soros-backed. This is George Gascon. So for any of you guys in LA that are trying to figure out who not to vote for, George Gascon, let's remove him from your repertoire because seriously, if the establishment is supporting him, he can't be good. He just can't be. And that's why I keep thinking if the establishment hates Trump, he's got to be the guy that we want in place. He's got to be. So hard to say. Again, a lot of people are optimistic about this Trump being discharged soon today, so we'll see how that plays out. I don't know if that's happened as of yet. I don't think it had prior to me starting to record, but it could have. I think it's still 2 o'clock Pacific time right now. So we'll see how it plays out. And another thing, just to point out, this is still continuing to happen, at least though. We're getting a lot smarter about it now. We had another one of those Smollett situations, those crazy hoaxes, right? Where someone just claims something. He came out of nowhere and he called me the N-word and there was like 50 of them, a bunch of white people all over the place. Now, this isn't the accent. It's more of a southern white male accent that I was using, but still funny. So anywho, Alex Perez, 18-year-old Althea Bernstein, says she was on her way to her brother's house around 1 a.m. 1 a.m. Walking around in probably not the best place. She says she was stopped at a red light and listening to music when she heard someone yell the N-word. According to the police report, her driver's side window was down and she heard someone yell out a racial epithet. She looked and saw 4 men, all white. She says one used a spray bottle to deploy a liquid on her face and neck and then threw a flame lighter at her, causing the liquid to ignite. She drove forward and patted out the flames. I don't even remember anything, she says, but your brain still has that fight or flight response that takes care of you, so I made it home. I called my mom. I drove myself to the ER, Alex Perez asked. Now, an active and ongoing investigation, Madison Mayer says, while we are still learning more about the details, current information suggests that this may have been a premeditated crime targeted towards people of color, which makes the incident even more disturbing. And Althea, it's definitely a learning opportunity, and I'm very, very hopeful that these men sort of see all the responses and that they know that they hurt me and that this is something that is going to affect me for a while. And I really hope that they choose to improve themselves. And Alex Perez says, and authorities say that they are reviewing surveillance images from the nearby cameras, hoping for any clue that might help them track down the attackers. Cecilia, as they look to the other camera, right? You know how that plays out. Well, funny you should bring all that up, Althea. It seems after an exhaustive search of video from city and privately owned surveillance cameras, however, turned up no evidence of the attack at all. And the investigation identified a number of inconsistencies in Bernstein's story. A review of 17 cameras in the downtown area from 12:15 to 1:15 found no groups of white males matching Bernstein's descriptions. 0. 17 cameras, not one of them showed this mysterious group of white racists. Police also did not find any fire damage in the Hyundai, according to the police reports, and a dog trained to sniff out accelerants did not find any evidence of them in the car. That seems to not back up stuff, too. That's weird. Forensic analysis of the shirt she reported wearing at the time of the attack did turn up evidence of the medium petroleum distillate, such as charcoal lighter, some paint thinners, and or an organic solvent. But according to the police investigation, right? So no such evidence, apparently, though, was found on the shorts that she was reportedly wearing at the time, nor on swabs taken from the vehicle. So somehow it just magically only got on the shirt. That's weird. The police investigation also found evidence that Bernstein had her windows rolled up at the time of the alleged attack and hadn't stopped at stoplights where it might have occurred. It also determined that she had been driving in a different lane than she told police and was uncertain about what exactly happened during the incident. There's no known record right now that they're going to go after her for filing a false police report, but I think it's another example of someone that's just trying to make themselves famous through the scheme of lying. So we'll see how that all plays out. Another great article that came out of Breitbart, GOP's voter registration wins in Pennsylvania's signal close 2020 race. Everybody's talking about Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's got a lot of electoral votes. It's a major battleground state. And as they've played it out on the news, Biden's kicking butt in Pennsylvania. But I don't know. There's some questions as to that. So since Trump carried the Keystone State narrowly in 2016, Republicans have seen their support growing substantially, according to a voter registration report released in June by Pennsylvania's Department of State. And this was just June. Think of all the riots we've had since June. But that report apparently found that between December 2015 and December 2019, the GOP gained approximately, and this is not even with all the riots and crazy stuff, this is just since Trump's been the president, even though he's horrible and everyone hates him and he's offensive and blah, 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 blah. During the time that he's been president and announced his presidency, the GOP has gained 258,705 new registrants versus the Democrats' 85,000. 258,000 versus 85,000. Which one's bigger? I don't know. What salary would you prefer? $258,000 a year in your bank or $85,000 a year in your bank? Now, some of you are probably like, I'd take either one of them, frankly. Well, sure, I get you. But one of them definitely sounds better than the other, doesn't it? So yeah, in Pennsylvania, it may not be quite as close a race as the polls may suggest. Remember, mainstream media is very much about propaganda, telling you what you need to believe, not what you need to know, what you need to believe. Very, very different. Now, something that's interesting, and I think maybe some of you might go, oh, interesting. That was my reaction. Tech company halts employee political talkers, says he will pay them to just go away. What he's saying, I don't want to get you into all the details, but essentially he doesn't want people doing political talk at work. Period. And he's like, and if that is a reason for you to not be happy at my company, because he's a tech company, and he's worried about Bitcoin and all this kind of financial stuff and dealing with customers, right? He wants to focus on his mission statement, not talk about politics. So he said, anybody that feels like they should leave this company because they're not happy, I will give you a severance package. He offered people a severance package to basically GTFO, get the F out, and I'll give you a package because nobody is going to be talking about politics at work. Why? Because it's divisive and it starts fights and it causes people to hate each other. And you know what? When you're working in a business or building a business, that doesn't help you at all. Company I worked at just in between the company I work for now, I left for a year and came back. During that time I worked at a place, and literally just before I got there, they passed a rule that nobody was allowed to talk politics at all, which in all honesty, kind of made for a good work environment because we definitely had a couple people on one side, a bunch of people on the other, and it really did frustrate people a lot to have those discussions. So it is what it is. And finally, to jump on the, I don't think it's conspiratorial, but certainly going to be kind of in that genre, if you will. But there's a lot of people that are suspicious that Biden very well may have been wearing a piece of equipment, possibly some medical device equipment, but most likely they think it has something to do with a communications device. I don't know if anyone's been able to get a good picture of his ear to show if he had anything in there, but they've had a couple pictures where some wires had popped out. There's a couple images that I've seen thrown out. We're not going to watch the YouTube video where people had seen some wires where he was tucking stuff back in, where he kept kind of doing things, where he kept looking down. There was a lot of situations where it seemed as though he was receiving information and focusing on it, because it's really hard to stare at someone and act like you're listening to them and not be distracted by that when someone's telling you what you need to be able to say. You have to focus on what they're saying and tune out the nonsense. It's very difficult to do it any other way. So a lot of questions, certainly some evidence, but a lot of questions are coming up around whether or not Joe Biden cheated. Now, if he did, first off, I just want to say, man, can you imagine how crappy he would have done if he hadn't cheated? Because I don't think he did that good, frankly. Now, I do think Trump maybe frustrated people jumping over him as much as he did, but for the most part, but Biden didn't get a chance to say any of the stuff he wanted to say. Most of the stuff he did say, wasn't very good. He didn't answer specific key questions. There was a lot of things that didn't work out well with the Biden man. So I don't know if he thinks he won that or what. It didn't play out that way at all. So again, a lot of questions going on there. Trump's got COVID. Who knows if the next debate's even going to happen? And again, isn't it kind of weird that everybody that got the sickness was only Republicans? Seriously? I get the talking points, and I get the way they've run with those, but it just doesn't add up to me. That just seems a little too perfect. Really, truly seems a little too perfect. We'll see how it all plays out. Hopefully you guys can continue to support all these channels, not just me, but I appreciate each and every one of you. Remember, where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.